Okay. The history of Starfleet uniforms. Intro. The uniforms a Starfleet officer wear tell you a story. It tells you about their era, their job, whether the Federation is at peace, bracing for a fight. Across more than 2 centuries of Starfleet, their design have become legendary, but some of them are hiding secrets. E- Even dire fans might not know. For example, what if I told you Captain Kirk's famous gold uniform was never actually gold? Today, we're breaking down even major Starfleet uniform, from the humble jumpsuits of the 22nd century to their high tech design of the far future, and revealing the hidden story behind every single stitch. Section 1. The Pre Federation Era. Star Trek Enterprise. Before the Federation and way before those iconic primary colors, the was Earth's Starfleet uniform were see on Star Trek Enterprise are the foundation for everything that came later. These weren't the sharp tailored outfits of later centuries. They were practical terrain blue jumpsuits. The design was meant to feel like a flight suit, grounding their early shabby era in a lot aesthetic. We can all recognize this was Starfleet's as brand new explorative service, just figuring things out. Division color, a staple of later design, were there, but in much more subtle way. Just think colored piping on the shoulder. Yellow represented command. Red was generally for engineering. Security and greenish blue was for science. And medical personnel, this created a visual language that would last for centuries. Need to know someone's role, just a quick glance. The Enterprise uniforms were designed to look like starting point, making evolution to the more famous costume feel earned. They represented a time of first contact and the first mistakes, as Starfleet took its first step into the final frontier. Section 2. The original series. The birth of an icon. And that brings us to the look that started it all. The classic uniforms, the original series, by the 2260s, Starfleet embraced a bold, simple look with the bright, impossible to miss division colors. The system had a solidified command was in gold, science and medical were in blue, and operations, engineering, and security were in red. This vibrant color coding made the crew of the Enterprise instantly recognized and cornerstone of pop culture. But here, our first secret, that iconic gold command tunic worn by the Captain Kirk was on set actually a lifetime green velours fabric due to the simplific film stock and studio lighting of the 1960s. Green material appeared distinct gold or burn orange on screen. The show's costume designer William Warren Ware Theiss even pointed out that the Kirk's green vaporonic tunic made from different material sometimes shown it true color magically. This is a perfect example of, of how the in-universe look of Starfleet was often shaped by in this era. They used separate handled communicator, a key detail that set the 23rd century apart for what it came next. Section 3, a nostalgical return. Strange New Worlds. Bridging the gap between the sleek Discovery era design and the classic 1960s look, Star Trek Strange New Worlds give us loving, modernized take on original, set years just before Kirk's command. Captain Pike crew sports uniforms that immediately familiar but have a polished from material audience. Costume designer Bernadette Croft leaned right onto the necessity of the original series, bringing back the primary colors with a fresh audience, fresh energy. The uniform bringing back the classic division colors. Croft leaned right into the magic of the TOS, the original series, bringing back the primary colors with a fresh energy. These uniforms bringing back the classic division colors, gold for the command, blue science, and red operations, but they were way more than just simple copies. The fabric were real texture and depth, with subtle division, specific micro pattern shoulders and arms. The miniskirt dress for the female officers is now optional tunic style worn over lugging, offering more variety. These uniforms visually connect this practical era franchise original point. They feel like a directional respectful evolution, honoring honoring the past while being on their own sharp constraining design. Section 4. The Motion Picture Era, a, a formal affair. When Starfleet entered the 2270s, it hit big screen. The uniforms went through one of their most radical changes. Gone were the bright pullover of the original series. In their place, Star Trek the Motion Picture introduced a much more formal, almost naval inspiration. Sprite took with trousers with optional from both long and short sleeved. The division color were much more subtle, moving from both blocked colors to small patches. These designs were meant to show a more mature, even more militaristic Starfleet, but more in the next several films, from The Wrath of Khan all the way to Star Trek Generations, Starfleet adopted what it arguably is the most beloved uniforms. The Monsters Maroons, these were striking double-breasted red jackets with black trousers, striped, and a white turtleneck. Ranked were displayed on the shrafted straps armband, while the division colors were a subtle detail on turtleneck. Underneath the design were lasted in a universe, a symbol of tradition that carried Starfleet through one of the most defining summer era. Section 5, the next generation, a look and pain in the back. Now let's talk about the next generation and a return to the color-coded system. When Star Trek: The Next Generation debuted, it bought back the red, gold, and blue, but with a major switch. Red now significated the command, while gold was for operations. Engineering, blue stayed, but for science and medical. But the real story for the early TNG uniforms was how they were made. For the first 2 seasons, the cast wore tight, one-piece spandex jumpsuits. The idea was to create a futuristic, wrinkled, free look. The reality, a total disaster for the actors. The spandex wasn't breathable, and the one size too small. Cut was tight that it caused serious back problems for the several cast members, including Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes. Stewart, chronic Proctor were permanently warned Stewart and Jonathan Frakes. Stewart chiropractor were permanently warned the studio that they were risking a lawsuit if the uniforms weren't changed. This led to a complete redesign for season 3 by costume designer Robert Blackman. The offer of one piece was replaced by a much more redesigned, much more dissified 2-piece wool uniform with separate jacket and trousers. This didn't just have the actors; it also created the Picard maneuver. Stewart's habits of tucking down his jacket, which didn't because the uniforms tended to right up. This era also finally introduced the comm badge, merging the insignia and communicator into the one device that would become a franchise staple. CTA section. From Kirk's not reality gold shirt to Picard's back to breaking Spandex, every uniform tells a story, both on screen and off. If you were enjoying this deep dive into Starfleet's closet, now is a great time to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell if you missed our next video. Section 6, Deep Space Nine and Voyager's era. A darker tone. As the Next Generation continued, a new show, Deep Space Nine, needed its own look. This led to a darker, more internalized uniform that reflected the station's greener settings. Design flippings and the Next Generation color scheme, featuring a black and dark gray jumpsuit that colored shoulders red for command, gold that operations, and blue science. A turtle gray turtleneck that was worn underneath this designed gray, more rugged purpose, perfect for crew that frontier and Federation space. When the starship USS Voyager got lost in the Delta Quadrant, it adopted this same uniform style, using the same design helped virtually connect the two shows. But the darker tone also mirrored the increasingly complex war tone story Dominion and War arc, Deep Space Nine. This uniform definitely looked the mid 24th century for franchise celebrity crew. Section 7, first contract uniforms. The mid 24th century was a time of transition, perfectly shown in the film Star Trek Generations, where Enterprise D grew a mix of the old TNG uniforms and the newer DS9 Voyager style. It was a bit awakened, but the phase didn't last long. Star Trek The First Contact introduced what would become standard issue uniforms for late 24th century. This design brilliantly blended it to a kept darker body, but moved the division colors back to the torso, sitting under a permanent gray, quieter shoulder yoke. Red was for command, gold for operations, and blue for science. And a medical, this sleeker, modern design was a instant fan favorite, and was adopted for the cast of Deep Space Nine in its fifth season. Seemingly undefined, Starfleet facing the Dominion threat, it became the indefinite uniforms of the final TNG era, presenting the Starfleet in its final definite. Section 8, the modern filming era, Picard Discovery. Fast forward to the modern streaming era when Starfleet looks has branches out across different time periods. Star Trek Picard mostly revisited the design of the late 24th century, honoring the first contact in Voyager's lineage with better tailoring, but keeping the color coding we all know. Star Trek Discovery, however, was jumped all over the timeline. It started with unique metallic accented blue uniforms for the pre-TOS era and even switched to the A version of the classic 60s looked in its second season. But after jumping into the third to second century, the show had a even look distant feature. Costume designer Gersha Phillips created a sleek gray uniform where the division color is a striped down side com badge, also evolved, serving a tricorder and personal transporter. The uniform used an advanced construction to hide out all the seams, giving it a truly futuristic feel. Then season 4 of Discovery brought back a familiar red, gold, and blue in its more prevalent way, proving that even in third to second century, the core tradition of Starfleet survived. Conclusion: for the simple, colorful tunic of the 1960s, the high-tech suit of the 32nd century, the Starfleet uniforms had been one of the heck of a journey. Each change, whatever driven story of a real-world mech, reflects evolving spirit of the Federation. They've shown us a Starfleet that is in time apathetic bold at other formats and militaristic and at other struggle rugged and practical. The uniforms are more than just costumes. They are a visual shorthand of state of the galaxy and ideals of the people exploring it. They were a symbols of hope, adventure, and endless quest for knowledge. But that history we're seeing on screen. What your favorite uniforms era? Do you prefer classic monster maroons, the first contact design, or something else entirely? Let's let me know in the comments below. That's Thanks for watching and live long and prosper.